Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
Fusion Superplex reporting a one-day loss of $32,000 as a result of BPL blackouts.
The man believed to be responsible for the death of musician MDs is arraigned in the magistrate's court.
A U.S. State Department report takes a look at Rastafarians' religious freedom in the Bahamas.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. An American woman died in hospital this afternoon following a shark attack near Rose Island. According to police reports, the woman was snorkeling in waters near Rose Island shortly after 2 p.m. when sharks attacked her. The woman was transported to shore and taken to hospital where she succumbed to her injuries. Police have launched an investigation into the matter. Well, Bahamas Power & Light customers were hit with another wave of power outages last night and again this afternoon as the company continues to struggle to meet power supply demands. Officials at Fusion Superplex say the theater lost $32,000 on Monday as it suffered through severe power generation issues. Jared Higgs reports.
Now, as everybody looked to escape the heat on Sunday, this movie theater was jam-packed with people. The problem was the lights couldn't stay on, so everybody had to go home. That full movie theater shut down on Sunday came as BPL struggled to meet the island's power demand and after Fusion's own backup generator gave out. Chief Marketing Officer Nicolette Eldon called Sunday's mishap gut-wrenching. However, she says not everybody knows the full story.
We've been running our generator consistently since June, but since we opened our doors to the public since November 27. And that has been run just about 8 hours every single night due to the lack of power that is received by our establishment.
Eldon says if the company didn't utilize its generator every day, it would run a serious risk.
We'd lose our equipment, and we have projectors in here at, I would estimate a cost of $500,000. I mean, we don't have just regular projectors. We have laser equipment here, and they rely on full power, and we don't have that.
Fusion's chief marketing officer says after Monday's massive loss, the company's generator is back up and they're ready to serve customers. However, she acknowledged that other businesses, especially small operators, are suffering just as much as them.
Yes, we lost tremendous income during that day, or revenue, but we're not the only ones, and I just wish that BPL would hear our cry.
And in here, it's very hot.
One of those smaller businesses is Rosalie's Takeaway on Poinciana Drive. Its 80-year-old proprietor, Florica Davis, says she has had hundreds of dollars worth of equipment damaged as a result of power issues. Add to that the losses incurred when she can't run her business.
Saturday, I think it came back on. My daughter called me at after 10. So we didn't make anything. I have to make that money to pay that tax, to pay the VAT, and pay national insurance and all of that. It's bad, but one day at a time.
BPL officials told reporters on Monday that despite securing temporary generators, load shedding is likely to continue. That means companies like Fusion Superplex and Rosalie's Takeaway, as well as residential consumers, ought to brace for continued power cuts. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
The Works Minister Desmond Bannister maintains that power outages are far better under the Minutes administration than they were under the PLP. Opposition Leader Philip Davis says he begs to differ. Jillian Gray has that.
Opposition Leader Philip Davis said the state of power generation in the country is deplorable and the Minutes administration must act now.
Reliability, affordability are all at a dismal low. We've heard the promises made that there'll be no blackouts this summer. Well, what are we having now? And summer has just started.
Load shedding began last week and was exacerbated after 2 of BPL's generators went down. BPL has said that rental generators are on the way to help to limit repeated blackouts. However, Davis said his concern is on the power company as a whole. Along with the frequent power outages, his concern is that BPL bills are still too high.
We were trending in the right direction. the cost of electricity was under 30 cents per kilowatt hour. It is now back up to over 40 cents per kilowatt hour. They trampled the plants that we have, abandoned it, not trying to understand what it was all about first. They could have seen it was trending in the right direction. So if it's working, let it continue to work. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Davis added that the long hours and frequent outages are affecting businesses and the public has a right to demand compensation.
Compensation for consumers should be given consideration because people are just not being inconvenienced by the blackout, but they are losing their appliances.
The former works minister also said that BPL should issue a load shedding schedule. However, BPL executives have said that there is a fear that criminals will take advantage of that notice, an explanation that Davis says makes no sense.
If they give out a schedule and they're concerned about criminality, then put police in those places. Put police in those areas. That's all.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Well, as political parties continue to play the blame game over the latest round of power outages, Bahamas Power and Light customers say they aren't just fed up with the frequent blackouts, they're also tired of the politics. Vonique Toot has that.
As heated BPL customers spent yet another night sweating it out in the dark, government and opposition officials were busy playing political football with the company's power generation issues.
This is the government that came into place and met a plan in place, a plan that was working.
The PLP failed miserably with respect to generation.
For 7 straight days, areas throughout New Providence have experienced disruptions in power supply, with some customers reporting repeated power outages and businesses reporting thousands of dollars in lost revenue. The Progressive Liberal Party sees the opportunity to accuse the Minutes administration of bungling BPL's affairs at consumers' expense.
The state of electricity is deplorable. Reliability, affordability are all at a dismal low.
However, it should be noted that summers were also plagued with blackouts when Davis served as works minister between 2012 and 2017. Days after thousands of New Providence residents and businesses were plunged into darkness, the president of the Bahamas Electrical Workers Union says employees have had it with BEC chairman Leslie Miller. Thousands of irate New Providence residents had to deal with sweltering heat this morning and throughout the afternoon.
Many BEC customers are outraged at the reoccurring power outages at their homes and businesses.
Works Minister Desmond Bannister didn't forget. In an interview with Our News, he questioned if members of the PLP bit their tongue. It led him to make this truly ridiculous statement.
But if you check the blackouts, you check it now, there's never been a summer under the PLP that has been anywhere as nice as this one has.
Sure, because multiple power outages in just 2 days makes for a really nice summer.
Terrible. Miserable.
On and off, 8 times yesterday on Sunday. 8 times.
Fed up with the never-ending blame game 2 years after the last general election, observers have pointed out that the blame actually lies with successive governments that have failed to effectively address BPL's long-standing power generation problems. Meanwhile, BPL officials are quickly losing credibility with an increasingly disillusioned public that has questioned what happened to this promise made by BPL Chairman Donovan Moxey a mere 2 months ago.
There's several generation assets that we're looking to make sure that we maintain appropriately so that we'll be ready for the summer.
Amid the most recent round of blackouts, the Works Minister has made yet another promise. BPL customers will have some much-needed relief by October. The problem is, we've heard it all before. This time, do we really believe it? Reporting for Our News, I'm Vonique Toot.
In other news, a 32-year-old man was arraigned in the magistrate's court today in connection with the murder of Bahamian entertainer MDs, who was stabbed to death on Friday. Georgia Bain reports.
The man believed to be responsible for the death of Jamaican Bahamian recording artist Devon Knight, better known as MDs, was arraigned before the magistrate's court today to face one charge of murder. 32-year-old Shimano Cooper of Sandilands Village Road, seen dressed in the aqua and white striped shirt, stood before Magistrate Shubusola Swain, accused of the June 21st murder of Bahamian musician Devon Knight, better known by his stage name MDs. Initial police reports suggested that Knight was involved in a car collision at the junction of Prince Charles Drive and Fox Hill Road and was stabbed to death during a subsequent altercation. However, police later determined that the established reggae artist, songwriter, and producer was stabbed prior to his vehicle crashing and ultimately died while attempting to drive himself to the hospital. In court Wednesday, Cooper was represented by attorney Ian Cargill. The magistrate informed Cooper that she did not have the jurisdiction to grant him bail. However, he could apply for bail in the Supreme Court. Cooper will be remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections until he returns to court for the service of a voluntary bill of indictment on August 15th. Also appearing in the magistrate's court on murder charges was 28-year-old Whitney Johnson of Jacaranda Street, seen in the navy blue jacket. Johnson, who was represented by attorney Dion Smith, was charged with the June 21st murder of Jareth Cartwright. According to police reports, shortly after 11, a man was walking on Rosewood Street in Pinewood Gardens when he was approached by a man who stabbed him before running away. Johnson was also made aware of his right to apply for bail in the Supreme Court. He will be remanded to the Bahamas Department of Corrections and returns to court on August 15th. Reporting for Our News, I'm Giorgio Bain.
All right, thanks, Giorgio. Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson revealing authorities will launch an investigation into a former police officer's claim that during his time on the police force, police beat confessions out of suspects. The allegations were made in voice notes that have since gone viral.
You got me against him. Who do you believe?
The voice notes were circulated via WhatsApp and have since shed a negative light on the investigation process of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. In the 3 voice notes, the former officer could be heard saying that at times police officers falsify reports, which are eventually used as evidence in court, and that they beat suspects while in custody into confessing. According to National Security Minister Marvin Dames, the officer in those voice notes has been off the force for 3 decades now and served for no more than 5 years. Dames called his comments appalling.
That bothers me. Because I don't deem him as being credible. It's his comments is an insult to past officers, men and women, who would have served this country over the decades, who would have given their life, and who are still upstanding citizens of this country. And those who currently serve today, who continue to give up their life on a daily basis.
Police Commissioner Anthony Ferguson said while his claims will be looked into, the police force doesn't condone that sort of behavior.
Royal Bahamas Police was involved itself in thorough investigation. And there's layers. And you find in most cases, particularly serious matters, they move from the police department and goes on to the Attorney General office, and then it goes to court. So there's a check and balance to determine the strength of the evidence.
On numerous occasions, suspects taken before a magistrate have alleged that they were beaten by police to confess to certain crimes. The police commissioner said if such a thing does happen, each officer is responsible for his own actions.
If an individual make an admission that he or she did something, that is not a reflection on the organization. It's a reflection on his or her character.
Dame said at the end of the day, there were many honorable men and women who have served on the police force.
As far as I'm aware, his comments really, he's implicating himself. Can't be implicating the good men and women of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Do we have issues from time to time? Of course we do. Every organization does, right? But for him to make a blanket statement like that, and for us to put all of this credence on it, who's this guy? Where did he come from? He may have served maybe I've been told, but less than maybe 5 years in the organization. He wasn't I don't know of him. He wasn't no investigator.
Still to come, Rastafarians' concerns highlighted in a U.S. report. Plus, the Bahamas maintains its Tier 1 status in a U.S. trafficking report. Stay tuned.